Tell me your theories about these cases in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts. I'm your host Yusuf, and these are the top 10 scary unsolved mysteries that might never be solved. Make sure you subscribe and ring that bell to get notified whenever we upload a new video. Anyways, let's get sleuthing. At number 10, Dyatlov Pass. On the night of February 1st, 1959, 9 ski hikers were sent to an early grave due to mysterious reasons in the mountains of Russia. The group set up camp on a slope, enjoyed some food, and prepared for sleep, but something went terribly wrong. On February 26th, a day before my birthday by the way, searchers found an abandoned tent that was ripped open from the inside. Surrounding the area of tents were footsteps with prints of socks, a single shoe, and bare feet. Following the steps led the searchers to the bodies of 2 individuals, both completely naked except for their underwear. The bodies seemed to have been affected by hypothermia, but medical examiners found that the 2 individuals, along with the other 7 found later, wouldn't have passed away from hypothermia. Discovered while examining their bodies was one body with evidence of a blunt force trauma consistent with a brutal assault. Another had 3rd-degree burns, one had been vomiting blood, one was missing a tongue, and some of their clothing was found to be radioactive. Number 9. Ghost Ship. On December 4th, 1872, a British-American ship called the Mary Celeste was found empty and adrift in the Atlantic. It was found to be seaworthy and with its cargo fully intact, except for a lifeboat, which it appeared had been boarded in an orderly fashion. But why? We may never know because no one on board was ever heard from again. In November 1872, the Mary Celeste set sail from New York bound for Genoa, Italy. She was manned by Captain Benjamin Briggs and 7 crew members, including Briggs's wife and their 2-year-old daughter. Supplies on board were ample enough for 6 months, and luxurious, including a sewing machine and an upright piano. Commentators generally agree that to precipitate the abandonment of a seaworthy ship, some extraordinary and alarming circumstances must have arisen. However, the last entry on the ship's daily log reveals nothing unusual, and inside the ship, all appeared to be in order. Number 8. D.B Cooper. Dan Cooper was a passenger on Northwest Airlines Flight 305 from Portland to Seattle, a 30-minute flight. He took his seat, lit a cigarette, and politely ordered a bourbon and soda, for which he paid cash. Shortly after takeoff, he handed a note to a 23-year-old flight attendant, who ignored it at first, assuming it was just the man's phone number. "Miss, you'd better look at that note," Dan Cooper told her. "I have an explosive." The note's exact wording is part of the mystery, since Cooper reclaimed it after the flight attendant read it. But his demands were for $200,000 in negotiable American currency, worth $1 million today. 4 parachutes and a fuel truck standing by in Seattle to refuel the plane on arrival. The flight attendant brought the demands to the captain. The airline's president authorized full cooperation. The other passengers had no idea what was happening, having been told that landing was delayed due to mechanical difficulties. At 5:39 p.m., the plane landed, an airline employee delivered a cash-filled knapsack and parachutes, and Cooper allowed all passengers and 2 flight attendants to leave the plane. During refueling, Cooper outlined his plan to the crew, a southeasterly course toward Mexico with 1 further refueling stop in Nevada. 2 hours later, the plane took off. When it landed in Reno, Cooper's absence was noted. Cooper, whom the media mistakenly referred to as D.B. Cooper, was never seen or heard from again. No parachute was found, and the ransom money was never used. At number 7, living statues. Encephalitis lethargica, aka the sleeping sickness, first appeared in Europe and quickly spread around the world, reaching epidemic levels in North America, Europe, and India by 1919. About a third of those stricken with the illness passed away. Of the survivors, nearly half eventually found themselves unable to physically interact with the world around them, all the while fully aware of their surroundings, like sleep paralysis. Though occasionally capable of limited speech, eye motion, and even laughter, they generally appeared as living statues, totally motionless for hours, days, weeks, or years. The cause is unknown, but one theory is brain inflammation triggered by a rare strain of Streptococcus, the bacteria responsible for many sore throats each year. Science's best guess is that the bacteria mutated, provoking the immune system to attack the brain, leaving the victim helpless. Number 6, ruins of the past. It's not unusual to find junk in Brazil's Guanabara Bay, but what Robert Marks unearthed there in 1982 was an unusual kind of foreign matter. In an underwater field the size of 3 tennis courts located 15 miles from shore lay the remains of some 200 Roman ceramic jars, a few fully intact. According to Marks, a professional treasure hunter, the jars appeared to be twin-handled amphora that were used to transport goods such as grains and wine in the 3rd century. But how did they get there? The first Europeans didn't reach Brazil until 1500. The Romans, who traded primarily in the Mediterranean port cities and the Middle East, had little incentive to invest in ships that could cross oceans. However, they did sail as far as India. Perhaps some untrained navigator lost his way in the storm, or maybe mutineers steered the ship westward. Number 5, the Voynich Manuscript. The Voynich Manuscript is a roughly 250-page book written in an entirely unknown language/writing system. It's been carbon dated back to the 1400s and includes illustrations of plants that don't resemble any known species. It's named for the Polish book dealer who purchased it in 1912. It is believed to have been intended as a medical text. Its first confirmed owner was George Barish, an alchemist from Prague who discovered it, taking up space uselessly in his library. Barish tried to investigate the manuscript's origins to no avail. The manuscript changed hands for centuries until it was purchased by Voynich, who posited that it was authored by Albertus Magnus, an alchemist, or Roger Bacon, an early scientist. However, some believe that Voynich fabricated the manuscript and its history all by himself. Various other hoaxes have been proposed over the years. Of course, that wouldn't explain the carbon dating of the paper and ink. Centuries after its alleged discovery, the Voynich manuscript remains as impenetrable and inexplicable as ever. Number 4, Walter Collins. In 2008, Clint Eastwood's film Changeling reawakened interest in one of the most bizarre and tragic crime stories of the 1920s. Single mom Christine Collins reported her son Walter missing in March 1928 from their home in Los Angeles. 5 months later, the police brought Walter back to Christine, except it wasn't Walter, and Christine knew it.
Why are you doing this, Mrs. Collins?
You have stopped looking for my son.
Why should we be looking for someone we've already found?
But the LAPD dismissed Christine's concerns, going so far as to accuse her of terrible mothering and having her committed to a mental hospital. The real Walter Collins was never found, and over time, authorities came to believe he was one of the victims of convicted executioner Gordon Stewart Northcott, although Northcott's mother offered a confession for ending Walter. Whatever happened to Walter Collins, his body was never found, and no one ever learned what really happened. Nor has it been established with any certainty why the police were so invested in covering up the boy's disappearance that they brought a different child back to Christine and tried to convince her and the rest of the world that it was Walter. Number 3, Flannan Isles Disappearances. In 1900, 3 keepers of the Flannan Isles lighthouse off the west coast of Scotland disappeared under the strangest of circumstances. The lighthouse was manned by a 3-person team, Thomas Marshall, James Ducott, and Donald MacArthur, with a 4th man rotating in from shore. On Boxing Day, December 26th of 1900, the relief keeper arrived to find none of the lighthouse keepers present. The only sign that anything was amiss was an overturned chair near the kitchen table. No bodies were ever found, which has led to endless speculation. Theories range from drownings to abduction by foreign spies, a ghost ship, or a giant sea monster. Whatever happened back in December 1900 at the Flannan Isles Lighthouse, we may never know. Perhaps this was one of the inspirations for the Lighthouse film. Whoever's watching this, you need to watch The Lighthouse, directed by Nathan Eggman. It's a banger. It's in 4:3 aspect ratio and it's only black and white. Slapper. Anyways, number 2, Circleville Letters. In 1976, residents of Circleville, Ohio began receiving hate mail that has wreaked havoc ever since. The letters, postmarked from Columbus, were invasive and accusatory, highlighting a supposed affair between school bus driver Mary Gillespie and the school superintendent. One letter addressed to Mary's husband, Ron, threatened his life if he didn't put a stop to the affair. By 1977, the husband was gone from the world, the result of a suspicious 1-car crash involving shots fired. When the sheriff ruled the passing an accident, however, residents began receiving letters accusing the sheriff of a cover-up. The letters continued throughout the 1970s and early 1980s, and even after Ron's sister's husband, Paul Fresher, was convicted of writing the letters and attempting to end Mary via a booby-trap-rigged pistol, even with Fresher in prison, however, the letters continued. He even received one himself. In 1994, Fresher was released and he maintained his innocence until his passing in 2012. The true identity of the Circleville letter writer remains unknown. Some still believe it was Fresher, others believe it was Mary herself, and that she used the letters to concoct and support the perfect execution of her own husband. Number 1. What list about mysteries would be complete without Area 51? Area 51 in southern Nevada is a US military base, the very existence of which was unconfirmed until 2013, when the CIA was obliged to respond to a Freedom of Information Act request from 2005. Based on historical evidence, it would appear that Area 51 supports the development and testing of experimental aircraft and weapons. Public satellite images, such as those available on Google Maps, don't provide any insight. Even those with security clearance to visit Area 51 are transported there from Las Vegas via an airline called Janet, whose planes are unmarked and which shrouds its windows upon descent. The intense secrecy around Area 51 has sparked rumors that the government uses it to house crashed UFOs and conduct lab tests on aliens. Other theories about what Area 51 is used for include research on time travel, research on teleportation, meetings with extraterrestrials, development of a means for weather control, and activities related to a shady one-world government. Thanks for watching. Leave a like and comment if you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you next time.
10 reasons why King Charles.
On Crime Time!